everyone, welcome to week 6. Going to take a few minutes in this video to go over the lessons for this week and kind of explain some of the homework a little bit. Obviously, I will go into more detail about the homework in the instructions for each item, but I do want to make you aware of a few very important things right away. So let's go ahead and take a look here at our agenda for the week. Obviously, the first thing you'll need to do is take the week 6 attendance quiz in order to access the lessons and assignments for the week. The questions on the week 6 attendance quiz will come from the material that we covered in week 5. So if you are behind, you're going to want to catch up, not only because you need to catch up in order to move forward here in week 6, but you also want to get caught up because this is a pretty big week work-wise. So you want to get caught up and give yourself as much time as possible to work on the assignments here in week 6. Once you have taken the week 6 attendance quiz, the first thing you'll see is a brief review of week 5. And then we have one lesson folder in the module that has multiple smaller lessons within it. So you'll see here the grammar and mechanics. That's all we're covering this week. You're going to notice that each item in this lesson has the word required next to it, right? So this little lesson here on useful words for grammar and mechanics, this next one on sentence fragments, the next one on run-on sentences and comma splices, eliminating ineffective writing, modifiers, and sentence combining. Those are all required lessons. However, having said that, they are not necessarily required this week. Basically, what I'm saying is, by the time you get to project part 4, the final draft of your research paper, you will need to have gone through these grammar and mechanics lessons. I put them here in week 6 because the one thing that you're going to be working on this week, the big thing, is the rough draft of your research paper. Some students really want to have as much information as possible to do as well as they can on that rough draft. That way they don't have to spend quite as much time revising and proofreading and editing later on. So these grammar and mechanics lessons are here in week 6 because this is the week that you're being assigned the rough draft. So they are here for you if you would like to go through them now. However, they are not required in order to access project part 3 this week. They will be required to access project part 4 in week 8. So at some point between now and then, you do have to come back and go through these grammar and mechanics lessons, but it does not have to be this week. So, keep it in mind that, it's okay if you skip it this week, but just know that you will have to come back to them in the next 2 weeks in order to access project part 4 in week 8, okay? But the grammar and mechanics lessons are here for you to go through between now and then. And hopefully they are all a review for you. Hopefully these are all grammar and mechanics rules and issues that you have already learned about. Maybe you need a refresher. It might have been a while since you really had to think about these types of small sentence level issues. But hopefully it is a review. Having said that, the one lesson that I think every single student should look closely at is this one right here on run-on sentences and comma splices. It is the most common error in student writing, the most common sentence level error, and a lot of people do not know what a comma splice is, and therefore have a lot of them in their writing. But they are a grammar error, and this lesson goes through what a comma splice is. It's a type of run-on sentence, basically. Again, it's so common, the most common error. So I think everyone really should take a look at that lesson. But again, the others are here as well. Sentence fragments, that's a pretty popular one, that popular error that occurs in student writing as well. Not quite as much as run-on sentences and comma splices, but still pretty common. The lesson on sentence combining is a really good lesson because it can help you improve your writing style and sort of elevate it and get your writing to a level that is a little more academic and a little more complex. All right, but again, the one I think everybody should take a look at is run-on sentences and comma splices. You'll have to look at all of them sometime between now and week 8. If you do it this week, great. You don't have to worry about it later. If you skip it this week, that's also fine. Just know that you'll have to come back to these lessons sometime between now and the time you want to work on project part 4. Okay. So those are the only lessons for the week. Our assignments, we have Journal 6, which of course is the follow-up to last week's discussion. Make sure you watch the 2 videos in the instruction area for Journal 6 and try to have that completed by Sunday night. The other homework item for this week is project part 3, which is the rough draft of your research paper. There are a few requirements, sort of prerequisites, that you must complete in order to access project part 3. The first of which is, of course, submitting the week 6 attendance quiz. The next one is submitting project part 2 and receiving feedback from me. If you've been keeping up on the coursework, that shouldn't be an issue. And if you haven't submitted project part 2 yet, you've probably been hearing from me, and hopefully we have a game plan to get you, caught up. But you will have to have submitted project part 2 and received feedback from me in order to access project part 3. The next thing that you'll have to have done in order to access project part 3 is you'll need to have viewed the PowerPoint on citations back in week 4. Again, if you're keeping up on the course content, then you've already done this. But if you skipped it, you have to go back and watch it. And not only is it a requirement to access project part 3, but if you are not familiar with APA format and how to cite sources properly, that's the lesson that teaches you how to do it. And it is a requirement for the essay. Right. The next item that you'll need to have completed is viewing the lesson on drafting research papers in week 5. Again, if you're on track, then that's already been accomplished. The next thing you'll have to have done is view the lesson on integrating sources in week 5. Again, that's something you should have already completed. Not only because you want to stay caught up in the class, but then also because you needed that lesson to do the 2 assignments for week 5. Those are also requirements for project part 3. You have to have submitted the assignment quiz for integrating sources part 1 from week 5. You don't necessarily have to have it graded yet, but it has to have been submitted in order to access project part 3. Same thing for the other week 5 assignment, which was integrating sources part 2. You have to have at least submitted that assignment in order to access project part 3. So if you have accomplished all 7 of these items, then you should be able to access project part 3 with no issues. If you are trying to find project part 3 and it is not showing up for you, because it should show up right here under week 6 homework assignments, see project part 3 right there. Or if you go to course tools and click on assignments, it should be there, right? If it's not, then that means that you are missing one or more of these required items right here. You can try to figure out which one it is. If you feel like you have gone through every single one of those and it's still not showing up for you, definitely reach out to me because I can help you determine which item or items still need to be completed from that requirement list. Okay. But keep all of that in mind. Again, those grammar and mechanics lessons, you don't have to go through them this week, but you will have to go through them at some point over the next 2 weeks. And then you have Journal 6 and Project Part 3. I really want your focus to be on Project Part 3. I want you to get this rough draft completed and turned in on time. It is due Sunday at 11:59, like all the other homework assignments. I will say though that if you need until Monday or Tuesday of week 7 to turn it in, that's fine. But any later than Tuesday of week 7, you need to reach out to me because that's getting a little too far behind, considering what we have in store for us in weeks 7 and 8. So, do your best to have it turned in on time. If you need 1 or 2 extra days, that's okay. If it's going to take you longer than that to get the rough draft submitted, reach out to me. Okay. Make sure that you watch the instruction video in Project Part 3. There's a lot going on in Project Part 3. It might sound simple. It's the rough draft. That's all I got to do. There's a lot of information that you need to be aware of, a lot of requirements that you'll have to make sure you have in your rough draft before I will even accept it from you. So please pay close attention to the instructions and watch the instructions video. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns, as you're working on the draft. No discussion this week, because again, I want your focus to be mostly on completing the rough draft of the research paper. All right, so that's week 6. If you have any questions, if you run into any problems regarding Project Part 3, especially in any way, shape, or form, reach out to me right away. All right. Otherwise, you guys are free to go ahead and get started on the week.